Okay, we're here talking about Unit 1, Learning Outcome 1.4 Policies. Now, in this particular one, it's quite a lengthy one. If you're doing a report, you must include all 14 policies. Now, I've asked a lot of rhetorical questions here to help guide you through what the policies are. So an acceptable usage policy. So could you look at Facebook in a workplace? Most people would probably say no. But if you're allowed 2 smoke breaks for 15 minutes, what's the deal with maybe just going on your phone for those 15 minutes and using Facebook? Equally, if you're in the marketing department and you're putting ads on Facebook, you need to be able to occasionally check on your personal phone to see what your ad looks like on Facebook. Most offices allow some personal time, but of course, it shouldn't never be abused. What could you do with a company laptop? Are you allowed to install games on it at home? Most companies don't allow you to install games. Who can you share your password with? Well, no one. You should always keep it personal and to yourself, and it should be something fairly complex. So acceptable use policy is about what you can use IT equipment, or what you can use your phone for, or what you can use your key for. Yeah. Next one, bring your own device. So I have a personal phone, which I bring to work, and I actually have Microsoft Teams installed on it. So sometimes when I'm here, I'm using Teams on my phone because I've also got another phone that the company gives me, my work phone, and I make all my personal calls. Sorry, I make all my business calls on this. If I have to take a personal call, it's always done on my personal device. So can you use the company's Wi-Fi as a learner? Yes is the answer, but should you be doing personal stuff all day when you're meant to be learning and writing reports? Can you make personal calls with your device? Well, yes, I can take a quick break and I can make a personal call if I need to, or I can receive a call, but within reason. You know, you have to take into consideration your working environment. And if you're in a meeting, you obviously can't answer your personal device when you are in a meeting. So common sense would say to tell your boss or ask your tutor, or maybe move to another room if you had to make a call. What documents could you print from your device? Now, if we've asked you for some covering letters or some job description, it would be acceptable if you could print from your personal device to the printer, that would be allowed, but everything else wouldn't be allowed. Access control policy. So access is really just about when I sign into my account, what do I get to see? Now, with my access control, I'm not allowed to install software, and neither are learners. So that's a fairly easy thing to talk about. Would the CEO have access to everything? Technically, yes. Can everyone in the company print to the printer? Yes is the answer. Can anyone who walks in off the street print to the printer? No, definitely not. Who has access to the company's financial information? Typically the chief financial officer or the chief executive officer, as opposed to anyone who's just started the company. The mobile device and working policy. So if the office were to shut down because of bad weather and everyone had to work from home, if you have access to a phone, what should you do with your device? It's pretty much common sense, isn't it? If you're home working from home, then you're doing work stuff. You're allowed 2 15-minute breaks with a lot of companies and a 30-minute lunch break. So technically, you could do the laundry in those 15 minutes if that's what you're doing. But the teleworking policy allows you to work from home, and in a lot of cases, you get more work done because you're not commuting. But it's there to protect you, the employee, and the employer to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, regardless of sort of where you are. The password policy is very simple. No one should know your password. There's a minimum number of characters it should be. These days, you need a special character, a capital letter, and a number, and it has to be at least 8 characters, although some companies are asking for 10 to 12. And if you know what two-factor authentication is, you can get a code on your phone, and then that proves that you really are who you are. And how often should you change your password? In a lot of companies, it's every couple of months. The secure development policy is essentially, if you're Microsoft and you're working on the next release of Windows 11 or 12, how secure should the code be so that people can't copy it and make their own versions? Again, this is fairly common sense. When you're working on new Windows 11, or if you're in a gaming environment, programming a new game, you're working on a company's server. Even if you're working from home, you're usually using what's called a virtual private network, a VPN. So you're tunneling into the company's network so that you can work in a secure place. Companies need to protect their assets with copyright and trademark, but when you're developing something like programming, or you're working on a server, it all needs to be done securely with HTTPS, something you learn about in later units. You might use TLS, SSL, HTTPS, all things you're going to learn in future learning outcomes. Backup policy, and I notice there's a mistake there. Backup is all one word. What should you back up and how often and where? So there's generally the 3-2-1 rule. You should have 3 copies, 2 different media, so a hard drive and memory, a second hard drive, and you definitely need to have 1 offsite copy, so a copy that's saved in a different part of the city or country or world. And generally people are using the cloud or the internet for that. Disposal and destruction policy. So if you are Microsoft or Google and you're running a server farm, essentially a building that has thousands and thousands of servers that contain our Google Drive folders, then each hard drive has a limit to their life. And generally, the computers will tell you when that hard drive is about to fail. And so what a company will do is they'll have a policy for backing up that hard drive, wiping it electronically, and then destroying it through a physical machine that crunches the hard drive into many different bits, and then it's recycled so that no one can ever have access to your information. Information classification scheme policy is around how you organize information in the company, from secret, private, semi-private to certain employees to public information. Just give some examples at each stage of where the information gets saved, and think about the control policy above. So secret information would be something that the CEO, the chief executive officer, is thinking about launching a new product. So that wouldn't be available to most people. Private, maybe only the senior managers know about. Semi-private is mostly to employees, and then public information is anything that you have on a public-facing website. IT change management policy. So quite recently, last year, our tech company migrated or moved our data from one location to another electronic location. And so when someone wants to make a change, do you think there should be a process, or anyone can make a change to a system without informing others? Well, obviously, there's a whole series of steps that have to happen. First, you want to get approval from the CEO or the boss, or maybe the chief technology officer. You would want to do a bit of research and find out what is it that actually you need to change. You might need to get quotes from different companies, because you might need to put together a budget. And then when the change actually happens, before it does, you let people know, okay, on this particular date, please don't use the servers. It's generally done after hours. It's usually done from 7 o'clock at night till midnight. So if if they have to roll back and change anything, that it doesn't affect the day-to-day running of a business. And then at the end of the change, you want to test it and check it, and then communicate to people that the change has happened, and then monitor it ongoing. So that's all about in a policy. Information security incident management policy. That's at the extreme. If you get hacked, if your website gets hacked, if your company gets a virus put into it because someone accidentally clicks on a phishing email. So who identifies or analyzes security incidences? Does anyone have to report back on the incidents, or hopes that everyone figures it out? Obviously, these are sort of rhetorical questions, which means you have to have someone that reports right away. In fact, we have a policy at Whitehead Ross that if we notice a breach through our own computer system, maybe you've clicked on a virus, or that someone sent you something that you shouldn't open, then we immediately have to report to our line manager and then to our company, that Tech Wales, who does the IT servicing. So it's a common sense approach to how quickly who to deal with, how to deal with it, and what to do. Recovering lost data from a backup, is there an investigation, etc. Information security policy. So this is around the information that we hold on you, your email address, your telephone numbers. It might be the information we get from the government on our boot camps and how much money they've given us. So we use computer systems in most companies, Microsoft Teams or Gmail or an HR system that tracks the number of annual leave days you have left. So all that needs to be kept safe behind a firewall with passwords. The information security policy links with the access control policy. So people in human resources only have access to stuff in human resources, whereas people in finance, same sort of thing, right? And for all these policies, it's a maximum of 3 or 4 sentences describing what they are. An information transfer policy. So you're thinking about how you classify information, a previous policy that I talked about above. Do you encrypt certain information? When I say encryption, A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. If you spelt the word cab, it would be 3, 1, 2. That's sort of basic encryption. How do you securely transfer files? There's a thing called FTP, file transfer protocol, but there's a secure file transfer protocol. We generally use HTTPS, which is the secure web browser. There's other things called TLS and SSL. Make sure if you pick one of them, you describe in one sentence what it means. Think about network security, firewalls, virus protection. What about logins? Okay. And the final one is an IT security policy. This encompasses the whole company. So this is like ISO standard 27001. This is not just about the information. This is about protecting. So who has access to the company's data and to what level? What about the network security, the firewall, not just the encrypted emails, logins, passwords, patches to Windows operating system, or if you're an Apple device or an Apple server system, you have to constantly, hackers are constantly trying to tunnel in through weaknesses or vulnerabilities in systems. Here's where I talked about encryption before. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. The word cab is 312. So you would use a higher form of encryption than just that. How fast do you respond to an incident, and do you log any of the information? This is all about the IT security policy. So this is quite a long one, but you are allowed to do it verbally if you'd like. Just make sure you always make notes on your learning outcomes before your tutor then records you. Hope this has been helpful, and we'll see you in the next video.